Sorry about the background. Just in Detroit trying to patch things up with my father-in-law. The arguments presented by Jake Conroy, the cranky vegan, they're more pernicious than at first they may seem. If we're talking about a political movement with 20 years of failure consecutively, what sense does it make to remonstrate with the audience that a great diversity of tactics is justified in pursuit of a strategy that does not exist, that he himself does not propose? If I were to list for you the 15 or 20 tactics most prevalent in the vegan movement today, what's significant is not that there are 15 or 20 of them, but that none of them are effective, that none of them work. Now, something similar could be said, of course, about what the Palestinian liberationists have done in the last 20 years. What's significant is not the diversity of tactics, but that each and every one of them is doomed to failure, whether we are talking about outright terrorism or various shades of gray with terrorism light, misinformation, lies, propaganda, so on and so forth. And it is very significant to present a parallelism between what Jake Conroy says in support of Palestinian liberationism and what he says in support of his preferred form of terrorism. Yes, terrorism in the past, present, and future of the vegan movement. So, direct action. Having vegans run into a grocery store, grab milk off a shelf, and pour milk onto the floor. This tactic is 0% effective. There is no positive effect, and there is a very real negative effect. Why doesn't Jake Conroy, the cranky vegan, say that? Why doesn't he say that passionately again and again and again? What is the point of presenting the audience with this thought-terminating cliche that, oh, well, you know, there are many different types of tactics that can be positively employed in pursuit of this grand strategy? Again, a strategy that in fact does not exist. Now, whether we are talking about the tactics used by James Aspie or the tactics used by Tash Peterson, aka Vegan Booty, what is obvious is that the de facto strategy is the pursuit of one's own wealth, one's own fame, one's own notoriety, right? There's a kind of survivorship bias here. The activists that last longest, the methods and tactics that are repeated the most often, are precisely the ones that will provide the activist with an income that will allow them to perpetuate and continue their chosen tactics. Now, this is primarily through donations, but there are other sources of revenue, such as pornography. I would say in very different ways, both James Aspie and Tash Peterson can be described as monetizing their naked bodies, producing either softcore, hardcore pornography. Now, it is only slightly less pornographic to look at the example of Freely the Banana Girl and how she made money out of the movement. But even if we are looking at someone as non-pornographic as Joey Carbstrong, this issue of who survives, of which tactics are going to be propounded, repeated, and emulated, that is the de facto strategy that strings together and perpetuates these utterly ineffective tactics. In the history of Buddhist philosophy, there is this powerful image. You cannot grind sand to make sesame seed paste, which is to say, tahini. You can grind, tiny seeds, sesame seeds that made of the naked eye and the palm of your hand look the same as grains of sand, but either we are talking about grains of sand or we are talking about seeds. It's not the case that something can be 50% sand and 50% seeds and be effective, right? What we have to recognize is not the number of these things. It doesn't matter if there are 15 grains of sand in your hand or 500 or 50,000. It's not the plurality, it's not the diversity. A diversity of ineffective, counterproductive tactics cannot be propounded as part of a successful strategy. We have to recognize that each and every one of these things in and of itself is bad. And in the case of the vegan movement in the last 20 years, bad in their motivations, bad in the methods, bad in strategy and tactics, and unsurprisingly, bad in their outcomes.